Chapter 1729 Exposed. Chapter 1729 Exposed. Yi Wuqian stepped forward and flew up into the air above the yellow spring. He stood across from Du Yuan. The yellow spring was very wide. However, if two Ren Huang were to begin battling here, they would still affect the people on both shores of the yellow spring. Hence, a cultivator from the Heavenly Mandate Academy beside Yi Futian walked out, and an extremely powerful might of Wei emanated from him. In an instant, an independent spatial battlefield was forged above the yellow spring. It directly sealed off the two shores of the yellow spring. "You all do not need to hold back," the elder said. The might of Wei on Yi Wuqian and Du Yuan's bodies were also released at this moment. A dark storm swept up in the sky above the yellow spring. Endless black winds blew in and instantly flooded the sky above the yellow spring. It was as though the sky had become a one-dimensional dark world. Rumble! An area of fire appeared in the dark space. The black flames were like the fires of death from hell. The flames of the Wei immediately consumed Yi Wuqian. An illusory dark silhouette seemed to appear in the flames of the Wei. It was like an evil deity that was trying to consume Yi Wuqian. However, at the same time, dazzling blades of light suddenly lit up around Yi Wuqian's body. Blades of extremely devastating divine swords appeared around his figure. With his figure as the center, they radiated outwards and resonated with the world around them. In an instant, countless divine swords shot across the sky. The flames of the Wei closest to Yi Wuqian's body were immediately extinguished. Buzz! The dazzling divine sword halo shot straight towards Du Yuan and his evil deity illusion. It was instantly shattered into nothingness. Great path of destruction. Du Yuan looked at Yi Wuqian. He naturally sensed that his opponent's swordsmanship was laced with the great path of destruction. Under the influence of this will of the great path, Du Yuan's fires of death were constantly extinguished and disappeared without a trace. At that moment, divine swords were everywhere in the heavens above. Aura of the divine wheel of the great path swept out of Yi Wuqian's body. Divine signs appeared, and countless divine swords resonated with the divine wheel in his body. His divine wheel radiated brilliant light and destructive power. Du Yuan sensed an extremely powerful pressure. In such a situation, he naturally did not dare to hold back. He instantly unleashed his power. A dark illusory figure of an evil deity appeared. It seemed to be formed from coalesced fire of death. The space was flooded by dark flames and became a sea of dark flames. Illusions of evil deities roared as they charged towards Yi Wuqian. Du Yuan's flames of the Wei contained the power of death and burning. As long as it invaded one's body, it could instantly consume the person and burn them to death. It was extremely overbearing. However, Du Yuan felt that his opponent's swordsmanship and great path of destruction was suppressing his own might of Wei. His terrifying fire of death could not invade Yi Wuqian's body. It could not even get close to him. Was this the suppression of the great path and the divine wheel? Du Yuan thought to himself. He had come to seek pointers from Yi Futian because he wanted to experience a flawless divine wheel. Right now he was experiencing it firsthand. This friend of Yi Futian was also a possessor of a flawless divine wheel. Against such suppression of the great path, Du Yuan did not stand a chance at all. Right now, the divine swords floating in midair radiated blinding divine light. The light kept pushing back Du Yuan's way. The divine swords hummed and emitted frightening destructive winds that ripped towards Du Yuan's body. With the suppression of the great path, you cannot harm me, Yi Wuqian concluded as he looked toward Du Yuan. He did not attack. Swordsmanship was extremely dangerous. If a sword was sent slashing out, it could not be drawn back. They were only sparring. He did not want to kill his opponent. Thank you very much. The fire of death in the space receded like a tide and disappeared very quickly. Everything returned to normal. In the end, Du Yuan chose not to attack. It was as Yi Wuqian said. Yi Wuqian's divine will caused his great path to be suppressed. Under the suppression of the great path, Du Yuan did not stand a chance at all. However, he had managed to experience the power of a flawless divine will this time. The sword will on Yi Wuqian's body also dissipated. The two of them had not even truly exchanged blows. Everything had ended before that happened. Thank you for the instruction, Du Yuan said as he bowed slightly at Yi Wuqian. His plane was actually higher than Yi Wuchen's plane. Du Yuan was a Run Huang with a second-tier divine wheel. However, in terms of ability, he could not put up a fight against Yi Wuchen. This round of sparring was indeed him receiving instruction from Yi Wuchen. Yi Wuchen nodded his head slightly, and then walked back to the inn. Yi Futian smiled bitterly when he saw this scene. Yi Futian had wanted Yi Wuchen to experience a battle at the Renhuang Plain. However, he had overlooked the might of a flawless divine wheel. Although Yi Wuchen's opponent was famous in Juyou City, he could not be considered a member of a top force. For his second-tier divine wheel to go against Wuchen's flawless divine wheel, they were indeed not on the same level. This battle was not very meaningful for Yi Wuchen. He still had not experienced an actual battle. I apologize again for disturbing Ren Huangyi. Du Yuan saluted Yi Futian with his fists. His manners were impeccable. Before this, he had initially wanted to ask Yi Futian to give him some pointers. However, from the looks of it now, it was meaningless for him to do so. Even against Yi Wuchen, Du Yuan had been suppressed. If Yi Futian had been the one to enter the battlefield, what would the outcome of the match be like? You are too kind. Yi Futian nodded at Du Yuan. He did not mind that Du Yuan had come. After all, Du Yuan had carried himself with absolute respect. He was a Run Huang that had come with sincerity. Du Yuan turned to leave. However, this caused an uproar on the two shores of the Yellow Spring. He was a disciple of the evil emperor. He actually was not even qualified for Yi Futian to lift a finger against him. Just a mere friend of Yi Futian's could immediately suppress Du Yuan. However, the sword will just now was indeed frighteningly powerful. It was another flawless divine wheel. When the cultivators of some top forces saw this scene, they had different thoughts about it. They were not so concerned about the actual battle. Yi Wuchen's flawless divine wheel was far more astonishing than this battle. How many flawless divine will possessors did the Heavenly Mandate Academy have now? Before this, they did not even know about Yi Wuchen. It was as though any person that Yi Futian simply brought out had a flawless level divine wheel. This hurt the members of the top forces a lot. By looking at Heavenly Mandate Academy, one would have the misconception that obtaining a flawless divine wheel was very easy, and its value was not very high. However, in the battle just now, it was made very clear. Even if their plane was low, a flawless divine will possessor could still crush their opponent. When the cultivators of the Shun clan saw this scene, one could imagine how they felt. Even Nan Luoshan's heart wavered. Nan Luoshan was a proud person. In the past, even a talented figure like her had to put in an enormous amount of effort in order to forge a flawless divine wheel. However, right now, wielders of flawless divine wheels appeared one after another around Yi Futian. This made her feel slightly uneasy. Up until now, Yi Futian had been witnessing everything quietly. In the inn, Yi Futian and Yi Wuchen were chatting casually. The way the people, who were on both sides of the Yellow Spring, looked at Yi Futian changed subtly. Before this, they had only heard of his name. Now they had seen him personally. Du Yuan, the disciple of evil emperor, was not even qualified to receive guidance from Yi Futian. A follower of Yi Futian was more than capable of putting up a fight. They felt as though Yi Futian was not of the same generation as them. His current status had long surpassed his level of cultivation. Rumor has it that in the 9 realms, many crowned Ren Huangyi as the top figure of the generation. You are standing head and shoulders above the rest of your generation. What does Ren Huangyi think of this title? Someone located in an inn at the opposite side of the Yellow Spring suddenly spoke up. The speaker was also a cultivator at the Renhuang Plain. As soon as he spoke, many people stared at him. He was a middle-level Renhuang from Juyou City. Yi Futian paused momentarily, while holding his glass in his hand. His gaze shifted and glanced in the direction where the speaker was. They were very far apart from each other. However, for high-level cultivators like Yi Futian, this distance amounted to nothing. In front of me sits Goddess Changxi. Across the river, there is Princess Luoshan, who was the one who said that I am the top figure of this generation. Yi Futian replied calmly, there are countless legendary figures in the 9 realms. I am but one out of the many of them. I am quite fortunate to have a few seniors willing to aid me in some matters. Hence, I have accumulated a little bit of fame. That's all. Ren Huangyi leads the members of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, and your academy dominates the battles wherever you go. Your achievements cannot be summarized with the phrase, a little bit of fame. The speaker continued to praise Yi Futian. I do not deny that others are exceptional as well, but I reckon there is hardly anyone who is on par with Ren Huangyi. When Yi Futian heard the speaker complimenting him, his expression turned indifferent. He put down his glass and looked at golden-winged giant Peng Bird Demon Emperor. Yi Futian transmitted his voice to the latter, saying, Senior, can you please help me to capture him? All right. The golden-winged giant Peng Bird Demon Emperor nodded his head. He took a step forward and immediately headed out of the inn. The crowd was stunned. No one managed to react. The Ren Huang had extended his praise to Yi Futian, but Yi Futian was subduing the other party instead. What was the meaning of this? Buzz! Golden-winged giant Peng Bird Demon Emperor directly disappeared from his spot. In another inn, the Demon Emperor who praised Yi Futian put down his glass. The next moment his silhouette vanished too. He merged into the shadows, as though he had never appeared before. This caused many people to reveal strange expressions. One by one, silhouettes of Renhuangs stood up. Many of them were Renhuangs from the top forces of the 9 realms. Was the speaker a Renhuang from hell? Golden-winged giant Peng Bird Demon Emperor appeared in the inn where the speaker was just now. He swept the surroundings with his will, but he couldn't locate the opponent. It was as though he had really vanished into thin air. Buzz! Golden divine light dazzled, and golden-winged giant Peng Bird traversed the space, moving into the distance. There, a slight aura fluctuation could be detected. However, similarly, it disappeared without a trace in an instant. Yi Futian remained sitting with an indifferent expression. How did you know? Changxi asked while looking at Yi Futian. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. I didn't, Yi Futian responded. Changxi revealed a puzzled look. But didn't we figure him out after we launched an attack? Yi Futian continued with a smile. He stood up and gazed into the distance, explaining, Hell lured us to come to the hidden land realm. Hence, surely there would be someone watching us from the shadows. Not only would they spy on us furtively, but they would also observe us openly. Just now, the speaker was a middle-level Renhuang. A strong cultivator at this level wouldn't possibly gossip in public. Moreover, saying that kind of praise in public towards me would only offend more people. It would cause me to become an eyesore among the forces. His words sounded like praise, but actually they were ill-intended. So I tried him out. I did not expect that my guess would be correct. Yi Futian's tone was calm. A cultivator from hell had been exposed. If the cultivator only had a normal ability, it was impossible for him to escape unscathed. He could only escape from the hands of golden-winged giant Peng Bird Demon Emperor if he was proficient in concealment techniques. It would be significant if they could capture a middle-level Renhuang from hell. At the very least, they could obtain some information about hell from him. Changxi smiled as she looked at Yi Futian. His method was brilliant. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1730 Di Wu. Chapter 1730 Di Wu Chang. She clearly knew that, currently, Yi Futian indeed could be considered the top figure in this generation. It was just that knowing it was one thing. Proclaiming it out in public would undoubtedly draw the crowd's ire towards Yi Futian. In the 9 supreme realms, there were many top forces and countless prominent figures. If someone claimed themselves to be the first, they would instantly be targeted by everyone else. Currently, there were already enough gazes on Yi Futian. Many forces were certainly hoping to get rid of Yi Futian and be done with him. If Yi Futian actually claimed the title of first, the emotions of some parties would also be magnified. Hence, Yi Futian naturally would not claim to be the first. Currently, he also had the Heavenly Mandate Academy behind him. He would do all within his power to establish the Heavenly Mandate Academy as the top academy in the 9 realms and forge the future batch of prominent figures. For now, that would be his priority. In the distance, a terrifying wave spread over here. Many people looked towards the direction of the wave. After a long while, golden-winged giant Peng Bird Demon Emperor returned to the inn. I could not catch him alive, so I killed him, he said to Yi Futian. His opponent was a middle-level Ren Huang that was skilled in concealment techniques, and would have escaped from him if he was ever so slightly careless. Golden-winged giant Peng Bird Demon Emperor could only forcefully use the might of his way to destroy the other party's way, and kill him in the process. Thanks for your troubles. Yi Futian nodded. It seemed that this hell force was more powerful than he had expected. They had infiltrated everywhere. A middle-level Ren Huang from Jiuyou City was a member of hell. As for golden-winged giant Peng Bird Demon Emperor killing the Ren Huang off, Yi Futian was not sympathetic at all. Many people in the 9 realms had died to the members of hell. This debt of blood would certainly need to be paid. Yi Futian and the others were still chatting in the inn. In the surrounding regions, people were descending one after another. The aura of the previous battle had radiated far and wide. In the regions along the shores of Jiuyou City's Yellow Spring, many people knew that Yi Futian's group had arrived. Hence, many people had rushed over here. Many people from various top forces of the 9 realms also came over consecutively. Soon, a group of extremely dazzling silhouettes appeared above an inn. The leader of the group was bathed in the divine light of the sun and seemed very arrogant. His gaze was extremely frightening. It was as though anyone who looked him in the eye would be scorched by the sun. The people beside him were all existences at the Renhuang Plain. Their auras were frightening. Who were these people? Many people in Jiuyou City looked over in the direction of the group. They secretly tried to guess the identities of the group. They should be members of Solar Divine Palace, someone said. The Solar Divine Palace was the top force in the solar realm. They were an overlord-level force. Other supreme forces in the 9 realms were all much weaker than the Solar Divine Palace. Since the Solar Divine Palace had arrived, the youth bathed in divine light was naturally the god of the Solar Divine Palace, Di Wu. Rumor has it that the god of the Solar Divine Palace, Di Wu, was the descendant of the sun god. He was the top figure of this generation and the future successor of the Solar Divine Palace. He mastered the power of the divine fire of the sun. Be it in terms of talent or ability, he was outstanding. Now that they had seen him in person with their own eyes, he was as glorious as expected. Currently, Diwu was looking directly at where Yi Futian and Changxi were. He showed no signs of avoiding them. This caused the temperature in the inn where Yi Futian was to rise. It became extremely hot. Many people in the inn began to sweat. It was as though there was a sun beside them. This feeling was extremely uncomfortable. However, knowing the identity of Di Wu, the people did not dare to raise their objections. This person was too frightening. With one look, he could cause the temperature in the space to rise. Changxi released a chilly wool over her body, which caused the small area where she was to remain cool. She smiled and said to Yi Futian, "He seems to have a bone to pick with you." It might be the effects of the words spoken by the Renhuang from hell just now, Yi Futian replied half-jokingly. However, he clearly understood that there was another possible reason for this. He had heard from Fei Xue and Chu Yu that during the Heavenly Mandate Academy assessment to choose their core disciples, a cultivator called Yan Huang, who was at the Renhuang Plain, was discovered to be a cultivator from the Solar Divine Palace by Shun Luoxue. Yan Huang's cultivation was crippled, and he was exiled from the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Clearly, the Solar Divine Palace knew of this incident. However, Yi Futian was not worried about this incident. Since the Solar Divine Palace dared to send spies to the Heavenly Mandate Academy, there was no issue for the Law Enforcement Hall of the Academy to cripple the other party's cultivation. The current Heavenly Mandate Academy did not need to give any face to any force in the 9 realms when doing things. They would act according to their own rules. However, from the perspective of the surrounding crowd, this scene was somewhat intriguing. Surely the god of the Solar Divine Palace, Di Wu, would not consider himself lesser than Yi Futian? Far away in mid-air, other cultivators were heading over here. This group of people traversed through the air and appeared overbearing and authoritative. They were from the Central Emperor Realm's Celestial Worthy Temple. They swept a glance in Yi Futian's direction and then found an inn along the shore of the Yellow Spring to land. Various forces arrived one after another. The forces from the Central Emperor realm, such as Celestial Worthy Temple, Martial God Clan, and Sky-Reaching School descended upon the region one by one. Other forces from the 9 realms such as Illusion Island, Fate World, School of the Emperor Star, and Golden Divine Nation also appeared consecutively. This region was very big. They all chose their own corner to land in. The distances between all of them were rather far. However, before figures with their levels of cultivation, this could not be considered far. They are all arriving one after another. The people in Joyo City were somewhat excited. The cultivators of the top forces of the 9 realms had all gathered here. Things were getting interesting. The gate of the hell had yet to appear, and the various forces were already on the move. Many factions most likely intended to be diametrically opposed to each other. The members of the various factions naturally also noticed Di Wu's unfriendly gaze. Today there might be a good show from them to enjoy. Yi Futian initially ignored Di Wu. However, being constantly stared at by someone would still be somewhat unnerving. Yi Futian shifted his gaze and looked towards Di Wu's direction. The light of the divine fire in his opponent's eyes was aimed right at Yi Futian's eyes. Di Wu had not intentionally released any of his power. However, his eyes seemed to contain the fire of the sun within them. This made Yi Futian feel very uncomfortable. "Do you have any business with me?" Yi Futian asked as he frowned. Di Wu's attitude displeased him. When they were in Tianshan Academy, Di Wu already disapproved of him. The Heavenly Mandate Academy is recruiting disciples of the 9 realms and teaching the way in the Heavenly Mandate realm. The existence of the academy is to teach the way, Di Wu announced loudly. These were not his words. They were the words of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. "Yes," Yi Futian replied nonchalantly. "In that case, when a cultivator of my Solar Divine Palace went to the academy to seek the way, why did you cripple his cultivation and expel him from the academy?" Di Wu questioned. "The Heavenly Mandate Academy teaches the way to those in the 9 realms. Anyone who wants to train can come to participate in the assessment organized by the academy," Yi Futian explained. "However, this does not mean that the academy is a place to accumulate filth. The academy will personally purge those who enter the academy with ill intentions." The conclusion was announced one-sidedly by the Heavenly Mandate Academy. As for what the truth was, only the higher-ups of the Heavenly Mandate Academy know. Di Wu retorted coldly. He meant to say that the Heavenly Mandate Academy was eradicating dissidents. It was easy to find a stick to beat a dog. Di Wu only needed to find an excuse in order to slander Yi Futian. He was not familiar with Yan Huang. However, Yan Huang's clan had been members of the Solar Divine Palace for generations. Yan Huang had a cousin sister who was serving under Di Wu. Di Wu considered Yan Huang to be one of his own. Even if they were not familiar with each other, the family of Yan Huang had still been members of the Solar Divine Palace for generations. With just an order, Yan Huang had been crippled by the Heavenly Mandate Academy, and his life was now a living hell. Yi Futian did not know whether Di Wu knew about the role that Yan Huang had played in the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Di Wu might have known, but he might also have not known, and only other members had participated in the matter. However, that was not important. The Heavenly Mandate Academy would naturally play by their own rules. "I do not need to report to you." Yi Futian swept a glance at Di Wu in response to his strong stance. Yi Futian had just finished speaking when a powerful aura was released from Di Wu's body. This caused the yin that Yi Futian was in to become even hotter. The aura from Di Wu's body was frightening. He actually also had a second-tier divine wheel. Clearly, he had broken through to the next plane after emerging from the god's relic. Di Wu's entire being had gone through a metamorphosis in terms of temperament. After returning to the Solar Divine Palace from Tianshan Academy, he had experienced another baptism in the Solar Divine Palace. His ability was much more powerful than when he was training in Tianshan Academy. Yi Futian frowned. However, behind Yi Futian, another silhouette had already walked forward. The silhouette's burly figure gave off an overbearing feeling. He stood there like a demon. Yu Sheng's gaze swept towards Di Wu standing on the other side. An overbearing demonic might roared out. The yellow spring ran between the two parties. Above the yellow spring, their auras of the great path collided. Dark golden demonic winds crashed with golden winds of divine fire. The two powers eroded each other and were extremely frightening. Buzz! Golden light of the divine fire consumed the demonic winds and continued to charge towards Yusheng. Yi Futian did not even lift a finger. Yusheng, who had a first-tier divine wheel, actually dared to block in front of Yi Futian. Yusheng took a step forward. When the golden divine fire descended, it was actually consumed by him immediately. At that moment, it was as though Yusheng, who was enveloped in demonic light, was bathing in the divine fire. Diwu frowned. His way of divine fire was extremely powerful. Ordinarily, people of the same plane as him would perish at a mere touch of his divine fire. Yusheng had actually consumed the divine fire and had refined it. Yusheng's gaze swept towards Diwu. His ink-black eyes revealed an extremely overbearing intent to do battle. "You are still unqualified to be my opponent," Diwu said indifferently. He naturally felt the intent of battle from Yusheng's eyes. Yusheng was just a follower of Yi Futian. Even though his ability was powerful, Diwu would not lower his status to exchange blows with him. If Diwu did so, wouldn't he be solidifying Yi Futian's status as the top figure of their generation? It would be saying that he, Diwu, was only qualified to fight a follower beside Yi Futian. Such an arrogant tone. In the inn, Dou Zhao revealed a bizarre expression when he heard Diwu's words. Was Diwu actually looking down on Yusheng? If you want to fight, then fight. If not, then just shut up and sit there quietly, Dou Zhao said mockingly. Who was Diwu showing off for? Wasn't he the god of the solar divine palace? So what if he was? Even Dou Zhao himself, a dignified descendant of fighting god, had yielded to Yusheng. Which member of their group in Tianshan Academy was not an outstanding figure? Why was Diwu acting so arrogant? Even the Shen clan was beaten to the ground, and their lower-level Renhuangs were wiped out. Diwu swept a glance at Dou Zhao and said, "Descendant of the Ziwei realm's Dou tribe, have you already stooped so low as to flatter and follow behind in someone else's shadow?" Dou Zhao actually had no comeback to what Diwu had said. Dou Zhao stood up, and his gaze swept towards Diwu as he said, "The Solar Divine Palace is so pretentious as to sneakily send spies to steal teachings from Heavenly Mandate Academy? Are you not ashamed of yourself? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." Chapter 1731 Girl of Misfortune. Chapter 1731 Girl of Misfortune. When they were in the God's Relic, Diwu was one of the most monstrous figures among them. In the God's Relic, he forged a flawless divine wheel. He had walked below the heavenly palace and bathed in the emperor's might. He was the god of Solar Divine Palace, the successor of the emperor's family, and descendant of Sun God. The bloodline of God flowed within his veins. Among the 9 supreme realms, the Central Emperor realm was the most powerful. Hence, many people believed that Jian Qingzhu, Shen Hao, and Nan Luoshan were the 3 most powerful figures of their generation. However, Diwu never considered himself to be weaker than the 3 of them. The Solar Divine Palace was the absolute overlord of the solar realm. Their influence far surpassed that of the other top forces of the solar realm. As the successor of the emperor family, Diwu could be considered to be the most prominent figure of this generation in the solar realm. No one else could claim that title. If he inherited the Solar Divine Palace in the future, he would become one of the giants at the peak of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Diwu was a proud person. Even though Yi Futian had defeated Shen Hao before, Diwu would never consider himself weaker than Yi Futian. The one that Yi Futian had defeated was merely Shen Hao. Diwu did not refute Dou Zhao anymore. Divine light of the sun shot out from his body. The blinding light caused many people to be unable to open their eyes. On Dou Zhao's body, fighting god aura swept out. His battle intent filled the sky and was overbearing. On his body he wore fighting god armor. Sunlight shone down on Dou Zhao's figure. He could not possibly block it. A terrifying high temperature smelted everything around. The armor on Dou Zhao's body also began to melt into flaming smoke and liquid fire. Dou Zhao's entire body was bathed in divine light. He activated the will of fighting god, An even more awe-inspiring armor coalesced on his body, blocking the incoming light of Sun God. Dou Zhao realized that Di Wu, the god of Solar Divine Palace, was indeed very powerful. Despite Di Wu's arrogance, he was crowned as the descendant of Sun God, the possessor of the emperor family's bloodline. Moreover, after he had returned to the Solar Divine Palace, he had broken through to the second tier of the Divine Wheel. His ability was most likely above that of Dou Zhao. Since both of them were wielders of flawless divine wheels, then their combat abilities were directly dependent on the difference between their planes. Dou Zhao was at a disadvantage when faced with Di Wu since the former had a lower plane. Even in such a case, Dou Zhao was not someone who retreated easily. Bam! The will of sevenfold fighting god was activated. Dou Zhao entered into a frenzied state as he transformed into a terrifying fighting god. "Let's go," Yi Futian said as he got up. His gaze swept across to Changxi, who was sitting across from him. He said, "Goddess Changxi, we will take our leave first." "Run Huangyi, where do you plan to go?" Changxi asked. "We will first find a place to settle in and rest," Yi Futian replied. Although news of the Gate of the Hell had begun to circulate within Jiuyou City, the Gate of the Hell had yet to truly emerge. If it did appear, news of its appearance would cause an uproar. Yi Futian was not anxious about this. "All right, we will meet again if we have the chance," Changxi replied as she nodded her head. She also got up and prepared to leave. "Let's go." Yi Futian and his group left the inn and strolled into the ancient Jiuyou City. As a land of oppression, Jiuyou City appeared very chaotic. With a sweep of his will, Yi Futian discovered that small fights due to friction between parties were erupting in many places. Most of these battles were also very heavy-handed. At this moment in the sky in front of them, a large-scale battle had erupted. There was a group of people being surrounded by another party. Blades then immediately slashed down, killing them off. It was very tragic. Yi Futian was not too affected when he saw this scene. The world of cultivation was like that. Such incidents occurred every day all around. Not to mention that they were in the Hidden Land Realm's most notorious city, known for oppression. There was nothing he could do about this situation. Right at the moment, Yi Futian frowned. In a dark alley of Jiuyou City, dazzling silhouettes appeared one by one. They surrounded the dark alley and unleashed domineering auras, sealing off the entire space. Whoever that was in the alley would not be able to escape even if they had wings. The bypassers avoided the area. They seemed to know the identity of the silhouettes. A middle-aged man, who was the leader of the group, descended slowly from the sky. His level of cultivation was high. He was a Runhuang. However, he stared at the alley with a cautious gaze. "Let's go in," the middle-aged man ordered. The group moved into the alley. The cultivators entered from various directions while the middle-aged man flew into the alley. Inside the alley, a little girl covered in dirt was curled up in a corner. She was hugging her knees with her arms while her emaciated body was shivering in fear. She did not even dare to look up. Yet when faced with a little girl like this, the group of cultivators was on high alert, and they were determined to capture her. Streaks of the might of the way pressured the girl, causing her to tremble even more violently. She hit her head in between her legs. She was extremely scared. "Take her away," the Renhuang, who was in midair, commanded. A cultivator immediately moved forward and extended his arms, ready to catch the girl. However, right at this moment, suddenly a streak of very powerful might of the way appeared in the alley. The might froze everything in the space. A group of cultivators emerged at the entrance of the alley. The leader of the group was a youth with white hair and white robes. He said, "Isn't it a little too much for so many people to gang up on a girl?" The middle-aged man who was standing above the alley looked at Yi Futian and said, "Sir, please keep out of this." However, a silhouette beside Yi Futian had moved towards the girl. It was Yaya. Step by step, Yaya came up to the girl and gently asked, "Why are they trying to capture you?" The girl shook her head. She didn't know. The little girl lifted her head slowly. Yaya revealed a strange look when she saw the girl's eyes. This little girl, who was in her early teens, had a pair of unfathomable eyes. Her eyes were like bottomless pits. Those who looked at her were engrossed by her eyes uncontrollably. "Elder sister," the girl whispered. They said I am one who brings misfortune, but I have never voluntarily hurt anyone before. Gazing into the girl's eyes, Yao extended her hand. She could sense something familiar about the girl. The girl also looked into Yaya's eyes. Then she took her hand. Come with me. Yaya held on to the girl's hand and pulled her up. Then, she turned around and walked towards Futian. Sir. Suddenly, the man in midair released a very strong might of the Renhuang. He said, This little girl is a deviant. May all of you show us some face, and don't put us in a predicament. The middle-aged man could naturally sense that Futian and his party were not simple. Otherwise, he would not be so polite to them. I will take her with me, Futian insisted. Yaya wanted the little girl to follow them. He would not stop her. Perhaps Yaya saw the shadow of herself in the little girl and took pity on her. The cultivators who surrounded the alley had ugly expressions. However, they merely stared at Futian and his group as they left. Nobody dared to stop them. Many people behind Futian had auras that were frighteningly powerful. Let's go. We will return and make a report. The leading Renhuang instantly turned and left. He was afraid that he had invited trouble. Futian's group had already left with the girl. After they emerged from the alley, the girl lifted her head and looked at Futian. She softly said, Thank you, elder brother. Futian lowered his head and looked at the girl's eyes. At that moment, his heart had actually trembled inadvertently inside. What were those eyes of hers? A mere glance from them had actually caused the life spirit in his body to stir. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1732 Yi Qingyao. Chapter 1732 Yi Qingyao. The girl quickly retracted her gaze. She lowered her head and looked at her feet. What is your name? Futian asked. The girl shook her head and softly answered. I have no name. No name? Futian was stunned. He asked. Then what about your family? The girl still shook her head. She fell silent and did not say anything. She also did not have a family. She did not know how she had come to this world, and also did not know how she had managed to survive until now. She only knew that she was a girl of misfortune. As long as anyone came in contact with her, things would not end well for them. Let us bring you back, Yaya said softly. The girl instead shook her head in refusal. She pulled back her tiny little hand. What's wrong? Futian asked. Elder brother and sister are good people. I do not wish to get you too involved. The little girl said with a timid voice. Even though I do not wish to harm others, I know for a fact that I bring misfortune. Whoever stays close to me will be in trouble. Oh, what a coincidence. It is the same for me, Futian said as he laughed. When the girl heard him laugh, she lifted her head and looked into his eyes. She thought to herself that he had the brightest eyes that she had ever seen. He was handsome and exceptionally warm. Really? The girl asked nervously. Futian nodded his head in affirmation and said, If we live together, we are basically fighting fire with fire. The little girl didn't quite understand what Futian meant by that, but she could sense the friendliness from Futian's smile. A glimpse of an innocent smile appeared on her dirty face. Even though she was plain-looking, her smile was exceptionally warm. It was a genuine smile. Futian and Yaya extended their hands. The girl smiled and grabbed hold of both of their hands. Why don't we let elder brother come up with a name for you? Yaya asked softly as she looked at the girl. Can you? The girl asked as she turned to Futian. She looked somewhat timid, but she also had a look of anticipation. Of course, Futian replied as he nodded his head. He pondered for a while and then asked, What do you like? I don't know. The girl shook her head, somewhat crestfallen. Then, is there anything that you want to do? Futian asked. The girl raised her head and looked at Futian. She timidly said, I wish to become nicer to look at. That way, I do not need to hide every day and can be like normal girls. Futian was stunned. He felt a pang of melancholy inside. It was such a simple wish. However, for the girl it was a lofty dream. When she saw the look in Futian's eyes, the girl lowered her head again. She thought that it could only be a dream of hers. Elder brother and sister had no relations with her whatsoever. How could they possibly bring her along? She would probably be alone again very soon. As she thought about this, her expression became depressed and sad. You will be named Qingyao. How about it? Yi Futian said gently. The girl looked at Yi Futian and giggled. Qingyao. I like it. Thank you, elder brother. Is it all right if her family name is Yi? Beside her, Yaya looked at Yi Futian in anticipation. Yi Futian was stunned. He then smiled bitterly. Yaya must have felt compassion towards this girl. Back then, she had also experienced a gloomy time in her life. During those tough times, Yi Futian was Yaya's pillar of support. Therefore, Yaya could most likely empathize well with the girl. Yaya was also at Qingyao's age at that time. Of course it is, Yi Futian replied as he nodded. He naturally would not deny Yaya's wish. The girl was not sure what the two of them were talking about. She lifted her head and looked at them curiously. She saw that many people around her were looking at her. There was kindness in their eyes that made her feel warm inside. The family name of elder brother is Yi, Yaya explained to the girl. The girl was clearly stupefied. Looking at the kind smiles around her, she lowered her head slightly and shed a tear. However, she quickly regained control of her emotions. She was used to being alone and was much tougher than girls of the same age. Even though she was only slightly over 10 years old, she would not cry no matter what she faced. Yi Qingyao. She carved the name into her heart. She did not say thank you, but today was the happiest day in her life so far. It was because she finally had a name. Moreover, the name was so beautiful. It was an even better name than all the names of the playmates she had met. The name was similar to those of the princesses and young mistresses. It had a good ring to it. Yi Futian and the group found an inn to stay overnight. Yaya took Qingyao out for a shower. After she had been changed into some clean clothes, Yaya put her to bed. In the courtyard, Yi Futian was sitting quietly. Yaya sat beside him and whispered. She kept holding on to my hand and refused to sleep. She was afraid that we would be gone when she woke up. Even after she was asleep, she was still talking in her sleep. She kept saying the name Yi Qingyao with a smile on her face. She most likely has been repeating the name internally. Yi Futian sighed. He had just met with the girl and did not have any attachment to her. Their encounter was purely a coincidence. It was just that Yi Futian could not ignore it when he saw a group of cultivators bullying a little girl. However, he was well aware that the world of cultivation was too huge. Scenarios like this were happening daily. He could not do anything about it at all. But if it was just Qingyao, he could still afford to provide her a simple living environment without much hassle. You will bring her back, right? Yaya asked Yi Futian. Yaya, you have never cared so much for anyone else before, Yi Futian said with a smile. Of course, he was an exception for her. Yaya had risked her life multiple times for him. Normally, Yaya had a very low sense of presence. She was always quiet. However, whenever Yi Futian was in danger, she would definitely be one of those who were willing to give up their lives for him. Yi Futian was very aware of this fact. Yaya said nothing and just stared at him. Yi Futian nodded with a smile. Since you like that girl, you should keep her with you. Yaya nodded her head in agreement. However, there is more to Qingyao than meets the eye, Yi Futian said. I also feel the same way. She said that she would bring misfortune. Can you make out anything? Yaya asked. I always thought that cultivating was like footprints. One can only take it one step at a time, and that it is impossible to skip past any step, Yi Futian said softly. I thought that people had to cultivate stable foundations. However, after meeting Qingyao, I feel that what I understood was wrong. Are you saying that Qingyao's cultivation is very high? Yaya asked. No. Yi Futian shook his head. She does not have any cultivation, but she has insights into the laws. Yaya was befuddled. Qingyao might be the legendary innate divine fetus of the Great Path. Yi Futian explained while staring at Yaya. Anything that could cause Yi Futian's life spirit to stir was a divine item. Qingyao's eyes actually managed to stir his life spirit. This was slightly terrifying. The pitiful little girl whom they had saved might be the most terrifying monstrous figure that Yi Futian had ever met before. Fei Shue had a divine item in her body. Hence, when she cultivated, her progress was speedy. It could even be regarded as Godspeed. However, Qingyao might not even need to train at all. He had never encountered such a condition before. Qingyao was the first. She subverted all that he understood. She was like what the legends said, a divine fetus, an innate instrument for the way. Even Zhang Yuan's and Yi Tianyu's bodies paled into insignificance when compared to hers. However, Yi Futian did not dwell upon his thoughts of Qingyao. For him, Qingyao was first and foremost a pitiful little girl. As for the rest, he would go with the flow of fate. Besides that, the force that appeared in the alley before this was most likely not simple. They should have noticed something about her too. Otherwise, they wouldn't have wanted to capture her. They were also cautious of her when they met her. It was hard to imagine that a few Renhuangs would actually be cautious of a little girl who had no cultivation. If the force were a top force in Jiuyou City, they would most likely not give up on her so easily. As Yi Futian had expected, the next day, a large group of people arrived at the inn. The visitors did not purposely emanate any might, but they still gave off a solemn vibe. Everyone in the inn avoided them. The entire inn was empty except for Yi Futian and his group. In the distance, another group of silhouettes appeared in the air. A middle-aged man walked out from the troop of visitors. He was wearing a long black robe and had a terrifying aura. The crowd observed all this from afar. They were shocked. Who was staying in the inn? The magnate of Jiuyou City, Hierophant Jiuyou, had actually come over personally. Jiuyou sect had been long rooted in Jiuyou City. The sect had experienced many generations rise and fall. They had been eradicated a few times, yet they rebuilt themselves very quickly after. However, through their rise and fall, the name Jiuyou sect had remained constant and had always been used. Hierophant Jiuyou was extremely frightening. Normally he rarely made an appearance. Unless some shocking event had occurred in Jiuyou City, he would not appear. However, today he was here. I heard that Renhuang Yi from Heavenly Mandate Academy had arrived in Jiuyou City. Jiuyou sect has come over to greet you, a voice cried out. The members of Jiuyou sect were all outside the inn and had not barged in. With Heavenly Mandate Academy's current standing, no force dared to act presumptuously before them. Although Jiuyou sect was the local gang of Jiuyou City, they still did not have the background of a supreme force. Rumor has it that Hierophant Jiuyou's current ability was at the 8th tier of the Divine Wheel. He was already an extremely powerful existence. Yi Qingyao seemed to know that these people had come for her. She kept hiding behind Yaya and grabbed hold of Yaya's clothes. She was very afraid. Hierophant Jiuyou, what business do you have with me for you to have come here? Yi Futian said from a distance. He did not invite the other party in. Renhuang Yi has come a long way. I have especially ordered people to send over some gifts, Hierophant Jiuyou said. Immediately, a number of maids holding gift baskets came forward. Each maid was extremely sexy and beautiful, and they were all rare beauties. They were also very thinly dressed, which accentuated their graceful figures even more vividly. Yi Qingyao pulled even harder on Yaya's sleeve. There is no gain without pain. Hierophant Jiuyou, I appreciate the gesture, but I cannot accept these gifts, Yi Futian said, rejecting the offer. Although the other party was very respectful, if they had come for Yi Qingyao, it was impossible for him to just hand her over like that. Hierophant Jiuyou was an understanding person. He waved his hand, and the women immediately stepped down. He did not force the gifts on Yi Futian. If figures like Yi Futian said that they would not accept the gifts, they would not accept them. I have long heard of Renhuang Yi. Initially, I would not have come forward to disturb you. Renhuang Yi, I am sure that you have noticed that there is more to the girl than meets the eye, Hierophant Jiuyou said. I have cultivated for so many years, and have finally come across a good candidate to inherit my teachings. I hope Renhuang Yi can allow the girl to do so. He naturally had seen through that Yi Qingyao had grown attached to Yaya. Hence, he had not said that he wanted to capture her, but that he wanted to take her as a disciple. Qingyao, do you want to inherit his teachings? Yi Futian did not reject his offer. Instead, he turned and asked Yi Qingyao. Yi Qingyao shook her head and said, I want to follow elder brother and sister. All right. Yi Futian replied as he nodded his head. He revealed an apologetic expression to Hierophant Juyo. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1733 Violent Measures. Chapter 1733 Violent Measures. Hierophant Juyo left very tactfully. This was a grand occasion, and he had shown his sincerity. Yi Futian had no intention of handing anyone over, so he left directly. For a time, everyone who learned that Yi Futian of the Heavenly Mandate Academy was staying in that and flocked to visit him. They wanted to see this legendary figure. Everyone discussed this matter. It was said that the powerful dragon could not crush a snake in its old haunts. But when the powerful dragon brought its full strength to bear, the snake could only lie upon its belly and grovel. Yi Futian was not going to hand anyone over, and so there was nothing that Hierophant Juyo could do. Juyo City was a violent place. Hierophant Juyo was not usually as friendly as he was that day. He usually dealt with things in a bloody manner, standing upon an increasingly large pile of corpses. There were no rules in this city, only power. So it was only natural that Hierophant Juyo would bow his head. The Heavenly Mandate Academy was stronger than him. However, after he left, Yi Futian said, "We should all be a little bit more careful. Don't go out alone." "Do you think Hierophant Juyo would dare attack us?" said Dozhao. "Not necessarily, but in a violent city like this, the most powerful people are surely fierce and ambitious. Since he left so quietly, he has probably accepted us. But maybe." Yi Futian said no more. Everyone knew what he meant. Juyo City was Hierophant Juyo's realm, after all. In such a lawless place, it was a good idea to be careful. "Sister, have I brought trouble to your brother?" Qingyao did not understand the world of cultivation, nor did she understand who Yi Futian and Hierophant Juyo were. She only knew that someone wanted to take her away. But Yi Futian had still asked her opinion. This was a feeling that she had never had before. "It's not a problem. Don't worry too much, Qingyao. Your brother will take you somewhere safe," said Yaya, patting Qingyao's head. This action might have been learned from Yi Futian. After all, her own head was often patted. All right. Although Qingyao had an ordinary appearance, she gave people a simple and refreshing feeling. Afterward, more people came to the inn to visit, all of them from Juyo City. Yi Futian left them all for others to deal with. He naturally had no time to meet with them. Otherwise, he'd have no time for himself at all. Yi Futian didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he was told that some people had come simply to pay a visit. Some had come asking to be his disciple, and some had come to offer their precious daughters up to him as concubines. That was right, concubines. They did not even dare to imagine that he would take them as proper wives. As long as he accepted them, that was good enough. This left him speechless. Were there really people who would sell their own daughters like that? Of course, these women were all beautiful and talented. Otherwise, they would not have been brought. After all, Yi Futian was said to be the most brilliant figure in the 9 realms at the moment. But the others from the Heavenly Mandate Academy understood these methods. According to them, one could lose one's life at any time in a city as chaotic as Juyo City. There was no sense of safety. Many of the people with descendants did not want them to stay here, in such a dangerous place. Now that Yi Futian was here, even being able to stand behind him was far better than staying in Juyo City. Moreover, Yi Futian was incomparably talented and very handsome, with his head full of silver hair and strong features. It was said that Changxi, the goddess of Yue Divine Palace, desired him, so how much more would ordinary women? Of course, no one knew what Changxi would think if she heard this news. On that day, Yi Futian was cultivating quietly. He had sent people to observe the happenings in the outside world, particularly watching for news from hell. There was now no trace of hell in the 9 realms. They were difficult to find, but their target was the gate of hell. Once the gate appeared, the people of hell would appear as well. At that moment, Yi Futian frowned while he was cultivating. He seemed to feel that something was not right. A figure flashed over and descended beside him. It was Hua Jiangshan. There is danger, he said. Yi Futian's expression froze, and he said, "Remind everyone to stay safe." As he said this, Hua Jiangshan's aura had already surged out. Suddenly, a group of figures appeared. At that moment, it seemed like many divine consciousnesses were sweeping towards them, each one incredibly terrifying. The sky suddenly dimmed and became shrouded in darkness. Incomparably terrifying wool covered the sky, blocking all the light. Black light covered the land. In just a second, it seemed like the end of days had come. Countless figures rose into the sky as they tried to fly away. Although they didn't know what was happening, the people of Jiuyou City felt a powerful sense of alarm. Death was all too common in this violent land. The first thing they would do in a situation like this was try to leave and not get caught in the storm. Whoosh! At that moment, endless hellfire descended from the sky, crashing down upon an area hundreds of miles wide. Everywhere this fire rained, everything died. Many plaintive cries rose up as people were engulfed in flames and burned away into nothingness. "Flee!" cried out many voices. This had become a place of death. The flames from hell covered the entire area, trying to bury it. A figure appeared in the fire, wearing a dark robe. He was powerful and overbearing. It was Hierophant Jiuyou. He unleashed his terrifying power, that of an 8th-tier divine wheel. The destructive hellfire transformed into streams of the great path of destruction that swept out across the land. Renhuang-level figures appeared all around him. Yi Futian looked up into the sky. He had known that Hierophant Jiuyou would not give up easily, but would resort to trickery. Thus he had warned everyone to be careful. But he had not thought that Hierophant Jiuyou would resort to such overpowering and direct means. He was cutting off his own road of retreat. After today, he would become a bitter enemy of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. As a great figure with an 8th-tier divine wheel, he naturally knew what he was doing. He knew what it meant. But he was still getting directly involved. The power of Jiuyou City was truly just as intense as the legends said. Beams of brilliant celestial light bloomed, shooting towards the hellfire. At the same time, Hua Jiangshan stepped forward, the beams of light opening up a road of the great path for him. He suddenly rose up into the air and thrust a hand out towards Hierophant Jiuyou. But Hierophant Jiuyou was not the least bit afraid. He thrust his dark hands down. They were filled with endless destructive deadly energy. Bang! Their hands collided, and devastating light swept out, transforming into a fearsome wave that shot out in all directions. At the same time, other cultivators were stepping out in other places. Their auras were terrible. Only a few of them were upper-level Renhuangs, but they had 7th or 8th-tier divine wheels. However, even such a formation was not that frightening, especially because they were only in Jiuyou City. Hierophant Jiuyou is not the only one getting involved. The people who had fled far away still felt their hearts tremble. Many of them were top figures of Jiuyou City. Now they were all targeting the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Did the old snake want to swallow up the dragon of the Heavenly Mandate Academy? The Blood Demon Emperor? Someone cried after seeing a terrifying figure emerge. Blood-colored light shone all around him, sweeping out towards Yi Futian below him. It was a horrifying sight. That's the Sky Sword Emperor. More figures from Jiuyou City appeared, shocking all the onlookers. Were they crazy? So many of Jiuyou City's greatest figures were coming out to attack the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Below them, many of the great figures of the Heavenly Mandate Academy acted, blocking off the area all around them. When war had broken out between the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Shun clan, they had flocked to the Hidden Land realm, and several top figures had been dispatched to ensure their safety. Although the Shun clan and the Golden Divine Nation would not necessarily attack them openly, who knew if they would attack them in secret? As Yi Futian watched this apocalyptic battlefield, his expression suddenly turned cold. Such a huge force had planned against him? They were openly declaring war. They no longer cared about the consequences. A young girl had been enough to make Hierophant Jiuyou and several other great figures act without regard for the consequences, even though the Heavenly Mandate Academy protected her. How much importance did they place upon her? Yi Futian did not think that Hierophant Jiuyou was attacking because he had refused him earlier. Would he really go so far as to risk his life just to save face? Obviously not. There was only one reason. Yi Qingyao had the same name as him. Because he had some special power, he was able to see that Yi Qingyao was extraordinarily talented in both mind and body, but others always overlooked her. Yet his opponent clearly knew her secret as well. However, even though he knew, why would he risk his life to get her? What kind of secret could it be? Yi Futian looked at Yi Qingyao, who just so happened to be looking back at him. She seemed very scared as she stood behind Yaya. When she saw the look in Yi Futian's eyes, her face went white. She was thinking that she was imposing on her brother and sister too much. She really was an unlucky person. Everywhere she went, disaster followed. Someone like her did not deserve to have such wonderful friends. But although she was scared, she let go of Yaya's hand and strode forward. She looked up at the figure in the sky and called out, "I will go with you." She seemed so alone as she yelled this. It was as if she was no longer part of a group. But she had been so happy these past few days. She was happy to have had such wonderful friends. But even though she wanted to keep them, she did not want to keep using them. "Emperor Yi, I will take her away, and we will end the matter here, yes?" said Hierophant Juyo up in the sky when he heard Yi Qingyao's offer. If he was not forced to, he would not gamble the lives of his family on this. He knew that no matter what happened that day, there would no longer be a place for him in Juyo City after this. But if he could take her away peacefully, the Heavenly Mandate Academy's anger would not be as fierce. Thus, although it was only a narrow avenue of retreat, he was willing to take it. Of course, if Yi Futian would not accept, he would use his most violent measures. He had to have her. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1734, A Domain Suppressed. Chapter 1734, A Domain Suppressed. Yi Futian looked up at Hierophant Juyo, his heart full of doubt. He could not help but ask, "Why would you bring such a force for a single girl?" Hierophant Juyo, the Blood Demon Emperor, the Sky Sword Emperor, and more had all gotten involved. There must be something more to this. "Do not worry, Emperor Yi, we will not hurt her," said Hierophant Juyo. "What does this have to do with the Gate of Hell?" asked Yi Futian. There was no change in Hierophant Juyo's expression. The death current flowed out all around him. Whoosh! At that moment, a shocking aura bloomed. The Sky Sword Emperor slashed with his sword, cutting the great path apart. Lines of destructive death light shone through the sky, cutting through the air, as they shot towards the people from the Heavenly Mandate Academy. He had acted without mercy. They had decided to act. They had not a road of retreat, and they would not leave any road of retreat. A violent storm whipped up as a Kuanping Demon Emperor flapped his wings, covering the sky for a vast distance. He lashed out with his wings, enveloping the oncoming light. Yi Futian stood there without moving, still staring at Hierophant Juyo. The news about the Gate of Hell had come out of Juyo City. Perhaps it was at the Yellow Spring. So did the power of Juyo City have to do with the Gate of Hell? Previously, a middle-ranking Renhuang had appeared in the city. The terrible storm swept out, as the Kuanping Demon Emperor flew up into the sky to battle with the Sky Sword Emperor. A cultivator of the Dou tribe strode through the air, descending like a god of war. His body grew hundreds of feet, covering the and below him. He lashed out with a fist, splitting the ground, causing dark cracks to spread out. Endless dark flames shot out in all directions. Bang! There was a loud noise as he transformed into a beam of golden light. He lashed out with his fist yet again, this time towards the Blood Demon Emperor. Blood chi rose up from the Blood Demon Emperor, as he grew into a huge blood-red form. He was terrifying in the extreme. When he saw his opponent coming, he lifted an arm. This made everyone for many miles feel the blood roiling in their veins, until it felt like they would burst. When the two of them collided, blood-red light appeared upon the great figure from the Dou tribe. But the fist cut through everyone like a knife through bamboo. Along the way, it transformed into brilliant divine light, smashing his opponent up into the sky. This battlefield was too small for people at their level. They needed to expand their fighting area, so they wouldn't drag in people weaker than them. Yi Qingyao looked at Yi Futian. She had not thought that they would really fight for her. If you want to stay, brother won't let them take you, said Yaya to her. Yi Qingyao was speechless. Although she was moved, she was also apprehensive. She was afraid she would bring them more bad luck. Yaya, you take care of Qingyao, said Yi Futian. Up in the air, people were constantly trying to break through the defensive spells to get to them. All right, said Yaya with a nod. A beam of brilliant light shot out from Yi Futian's forehead, which then transformed into many divine halls that covered Yaya and Yi Qingyao. Yaya was stunned. This was Yi Futian's defensive treasure, and he was giving it to them. Was he planning on going to fight himself? Everyone who had come to the Hidden Land realm was at the Renhuang level or above. There were no weaklings here. This truly was a trial for the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. I'm going to help. As Yi Futian said this, he suddenly shot up into the sky. Many figures flew through the air around him, charging towards Hierophant Juyo and the other cultivators. Whoosh! The storm of death raged. A Renhuang with huge black wings charged towards Yi Futian. His divine will surged and huge, dark vermilion birds appeared, filled with a destructive will. The images of vermilion birds shot towards Yi Futian, filling the air around him. This was a mid-level Renhuang. He was truly terrifying. A spear appeared in Yi Futian's hands. It was the one he had gotten in the god's relic, and it was filled with fighting will. At that moment his aura raged, and his figure flashed through the air. His divine will released its energy, which cut through space itself. Many of the dark vermilion birds were shattered. A beam of light appeared before his opponent. Crack! At the moment that his fighting will surged, his spear pierced through his opponent. Yi Futian went right through him, and the huge dark vermilion bird shattered into pieces. The people watching from far away trembled as they saw this. Although they lived in the Hidden Land realm, they had always heard of Yi Futian's strength. But those were just legends. The kind silver-haired youth stood there in the air, bathed in divine light like a god of war. His spiritual will was so powerful that with a single spear thrust, he had slain a mid-level Renhuang. Moreover, he had broken through to the next level, and already had a second-tier divine wheel, even though it had only been 4 or 5 years since he had created it in the god's relic. The cultivation of geniuses like him could not be compared to ordinary people. And it was not just Yi Futian. They also realized that the other cultivators were terrifying as well. When the first-tier Heavenly Mandate Academy Renhuangs unleashed their divine wheels, their talent had been obvious and dazzling. They were all world-class heroes. All of them had crossed through many realms to fight here. When they had heard that Yi Futian had led a force of first-tier, lower-level Renhuangs to sweep away the Shun clan, and that their opponents had not had any power to resist, they had thought it was exaggerated. After all, that was the Shun clan they were talking about. But now, seeing this battle with their own eyes, they could clearly see how strong these people were. In the distance, more cultivators were arriving on the battlefield, including some top powers from other realms. A battle of this level had made great waves. Everyone in Juyo City could feel it. Even far away, people looked up and could see what was happening. At that moment, Princess Nanluoyue of the Nantian Divine Nation pierced through the air, watching the battlefield. Her gaze fell upon the white-haired figure. She had only heard about the battle at the Shun clan. She was very curious to see just how capable a combatant Yi Futian was. Yi Futian was truly just as many people in the outside world thought he was. Was he already the greatest figure of his generation, in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path? Even her father had such high praise for him. He was an icon of their age. At that moment, she saw the sky around Yi Futian dim, as if it was being swallowed by darkness. Yi Futian completely disappeared. Huh? Nanluotian froze. This? Hell, said Nanluotian. After she said this, she strode forward, calling out, "Take them!" Another force seemed to have appeared. Moreover, Hierophant Juyo, who had lived in Juyo City for many years, and some of the other great figures, seemed to have something to do with this. Had the vanished power, known as Hell, insinuated itself so deeply into the Hidden Land realm these past few years? The other cultivators realized that Hierophant Juyo had something to do with Hell. Suddenly, a group of figures strode forward towards the battlefield. Yi Futian had been plunged into shadow, The area he was in was completely covered in darkness. There was no sound, no air, no light, just absolute darkness. Cultivators had incredible eyesight, and the dark of night did not affect their vision. And moreover, they had their divine consciousness. But where he was not the darkness of night. It was the Great Path domain. Even his divine consciousness was cut off by the darkness. He had no way of sensing the outside world. Yi Futian unleashed his divine wheel, but the divine light could only light up a small area. The rest of the space was still filled by absolute darkness. This meant that his will was being suppressed. The one who was attacking him was a cultivator with a 6th-tier divine wheel, a mid-level emperor. They had come to take away Yi Qingyao. But Yi Futian had used his ritual implement to cut her off from them in the spatial sacred hall. Since they could not take her, they could only capture Yi Futian to make them trade him for her. This was their last chance. Suddenly a powerful sense of threat descended. Yi Futian suddenly turned around. A spear of a god of death appeared in the darkness behind him, overpowering and fierce. A frightening figure was thrusting it towards him. A terrible spatial vortex appeared in the air, destroying everything within it. The spear coming from the darkness was extremely deadly and very fast. Roar! The divine elephants trumpeted, and the spear slammed into the body of a massive divine elephant, shattering it into pieces. The ferocious spatial vortex entered into Yi Futian, making lines of dark light appear all over him as his body cracked. Yi Futian was sent flying, letting out a groan of intense pain. His opponent stepped forward, trying to go further into the darkness. But he found that he could not. What is going on? He looked into the air. High above, stars whirled around, and powerful will spread out, covering his body. And he himself could not access the Great Path. It was as if he had been cut off from it. Had he been cut off from the Great Path domain? Yi Futian had pulled him into his own Great Path domain. But Yi Futian was far weaker than him. How could he do this? Only if his Great Path domain had cut off his opponents could this be possible. Was it because he had a perfect divine wheel? However, even with his perfect divine wheel, Yi Futian was still only at the 2nd tier. His opponent was at the 6th tier. Could even a perfect divine will make up such a huge difference, and let him suppress his Great Path domain? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. This Great Path domain was a separate vast space that had the sun, the moon, and the stars. It looked just like a real world. The only thing unusual was that the cultivator in the Divine Will 6th Order couldn't make contact with the outside world anymore. As one of the best cultivators in the middle-level Renhuang plane, he was extremely powerful with the body of the Great Path. Yet now, he seemed to have lost his power to communicate. This Great Path domain was a separate vast space that had the sun, the moon, and the stars. It looked just like a real world. The only thing unusual was that the cultivator in the Divine Will 6th Order couldn't make contact with the outside world anymore. As one of the best cultivators in the middle-level Renhuang plane, he was extremely powerful with the body of the Great Path. Yet now, he seemed to have lost his power to communicate. What kind of a divine will is this? He glared at Yi Futian and asked in a cold voice. Bang! He sensed a terrifying burst of energy of the Great Path, and a massive wave. Great Path rules flowed in the air, while countless stars fell from the sky and shot at his body. This cultivator in the middle-level Renhuang plane felt like his whole world was collapsing at the moment. Buzz! His body became a shadow and rushed in the darkness. He was extremely fast. The incredible speed made it seem like his shadow was surrounding Yi Futian from all directions. However, he could not blend into the darkness like before to evade Yi Futian's detection. Right now, Yi Futian could sense his existence, no matter how fast he managed to be. A frightening black storm took shape around Yi Futian's body. The dark whirlwind swallowed everything nearby, as the man exerting strength from his divine wheel. Buzz! Yi Futian thrust a spear forward. The terrifying whirlwind of destruction pounced on Yi Futian's body. Even stars in the sky were devoured and annihilated by the whirlwind. Yi Futian jumped nimbly, and appeared in the air high above. The spear in his hand vanished, and a long stick appeared. Bang! The stick extended dramatically to an astonishing length. Yi Futian was like a war god, who drew all the power of this world great path to his body. Bang! Bang! A starry storm was developing in the void, accompanied by spine-chilling noises. The stars hanging in this space spun frantically, as though the void was about to crash into entropy. The Great Path domain was going on the rampage. Bang! An exceptionally violent storm of the Great Path emerged and blocked the cultivator in the Divine Will Sixth Order, just when he was about to change location. His shadow flashed, yet the storm was everywhere. Yi Futian bathed in the brilliant divine light. His silver, long hair was blowing in the wind. He raised the stick in his hand. The entire world was collapsing in horrifying thunder. The Run Huang in the Divine Will Sixth Order had an illusion at the moment that Yi Futian and this Great Path domain formed an integral whole. Yi Futian's every move was magnified by the Great Path domain. As a master cultivator in the middle-level Run Huang plane, he was surprisingly threatened by Yi Futian. The rampant starry storm kept swirling. He finally stopped moving after a violent crash and a loud bang. He stood high in the air. The divine will behind him seemed even scarier. The dark whirlwind of destruction slowly swallowed the great path of space and turned it to hell. The destructive energy wrapped around his body. He suddenly transformed into a bolt of black lightning and struck forward with great momentum. Bang bang! His spear crushed every star it touched. It was as if the sky was crumbling. The entire great path of space was about to perish as millions of stars exploding. Staring at the approaching spear, Yi Futian brandished the long stick in his hand. The great path of space quaked as though all the energy in the world was connected with him. Every movement of the long stick was like a roar of the stars in the great path domain. The shadow of the stick blotted out the sun. Yi Futian stepped forward and made a sweeping motion. The stick contained the energy of the entire world and bathed in the brilliant light of the stars surrounding the space. The man looked at the stick as if he saw millions of stars falling upon his head. Bang! After a thunderous sound, the great path of space collapsed and everything inside shattered into pieces. Yi Futian was the only one standing on the battlefield when the shadow disappeared. Hierophant Juyo and the others realized that the other person was gone. Apparently he was killed. Just now, the two of them entered a separate space to fight. It ended with one person dead. Much to their surprise, Yi Futian won. Hierophant Juyo was still tangling with Hua Jiangshan high up in the air. An embarrassed look swept across his face. How did Yi Futian kill a cultivator at peak middle-level Renhuang plane with a sixth-order divine wheel? There were 4 levels between them. Although Hierophant Juyo heard that Yi Futian was exceedingly powerful, he never expected such results. Did they need someone in the high-level Renhuang plane to defeat a cultivator with a second-order divine wheel? Retreat, said Hierophant Juyo. The clash between Yi Futian and the man didn't last long in reality. Everything happened in a short time. Cultivators from various other groups were marching toward them and might join the fight. They wouldn't be able to pull back if they didn't leave now. Where do you think you're going? There was no way the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy would let them go easily. Some people also rushed here from afar. They wanted to keep the enemy in place. Nevertheless, darkness suddenly engulfed the field. The entire world quieted down. Many people stopped moving at once as an overwhelming sense of crisis settled over them. Be careful, Hua Jiangshan reminded everyone. Several cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy surrounded Yi Futian and sealed off the area with domineering force of the Great Path. They were worried that someone would catch them off guard. However, darkness slowly disappeared, and nothing happened. Hierophant Juyo and his people already vanished when everything went back normal. What happened? Many people were astonished. What was it just now? Yi Futian's eyebrows knitted tightly. Was it a magic tool? Or did a powerful cultivator hiding in the dark help them? Cultivators from various supreme forces arrived one after the other. A look of concern and confusion furrowed their brows when they saw the enemies had left. They also sensed something peculiar a moment ago. Nan Luotian stood in the void, as gorgeous as usual. a frightening old man behind her said to her in a low voice. A mysterious force is here. People from the hell probably infiltrated Juyo City already. Our trip might be more complicated than we expected. Nan Luoshan nodded slightly. She realized it as well. The hell lured them here, to look for the gate of the hell. They still didn't know what secrets they were hiding, and what their objectives were. Nan Luoshan didn't think for too long. She lowered her head and glanced at Yi Futian. A strange look crossed her beautiful face. The man who fought with him seemed to be in the Divine Will Sixth Order. Nevertheless, Yi Futian came out while his opponent was gone. The man had undoubtedly been killed by Yi Futian. She also had a perfect divine wheel, and certainly understood that a Run Huang with a perfect divine will controlled the finest power of the Great Path. Even so, his ability was not limitless, and his opponent was also a Run Huang after all. However, Yi Futian killed someone 4 levels higher. How staggering and terrifying it was. Would he be able to defeat cultivators in the high-level Renhuang plane if he advanced to the Divine Will Third Order? High-level Renhuangs were master cultivators. How did Yi Futian achieve this? Divine item. An idea suddenly popped in Nan Luoshan's head. She obtained a divine item under the Heavenly Palace in God's Relic. The same thing probably happened to Yi Futian as well. Perhaps he got more divine items in addition to the one he gave to Yaya. The divine item must be the reason why he had a chance to kill a middle-level Renhuang. Nan Luoshan was not the only person looking at Yi Futian. All the cultivators who just arrived stared at him as well. Although they didn't witness the fight with their own eyes, the ending was stirring enough. Renhuang Yi, what is the goal of the Juyo sect? Nan Luoshan asked. Juyo sect was very likely to be connected to the hell. Yi Futian looked at Nan Luoshan and shook his head, replied, I don't know either. While speaking, he looked down at the figure of the girl covered by the spatial sacred hall. From what he could tell, Qingyao was not only wanted by the Juyo sect. The hell was probably after her as well. If that was the case, he had more reasons to protect Qingyao better. At first, he was only feeling compassionate, and got involved simply because he couldn't watch a group of Renhuang bullying a kid. The situation became more complicated just now. Yi Futian landed on the ground and put back the spatial sacred hall. Yi Qingyao stared at Yi Futian silently, then slightly lowered her head as if she did something wrong. I bring bad luck, she said in a quiet voice. Yi Futian heard her and walked forward. He put his hands on Yi Qingyao's shoulders and said, Qingyao, don't belittle yourself. Why would they go through such trouble if you bring bad luck? They are the top forces in Juyo City. Yi Qingyao raised her head and looked at Yi Futian. She didn't know why they were after her either. Nonetheless, this was the first time she felt protected by someone. Even though the world seems to be full of sadness and misfortunes, there are also many people and many things that are not as terrible as you imagined, right? Yi Futian spoke softly. Qingyao, you're not ordinary. So don't ever underestimate yourself. Okay. Yi Qingyao nodded. You need to remember to take care of yourself if the day comes when I can't protect you anymore, Yi Futian said. Yi Qingyao was dazed. She looked at Yi Futian, eyes filled with sorrow. Then she lowered her head, and didn't have the courage to meet Yi Futian's eyes. Don't worry too much. I will do my best to protect you. I was only saying if. Do you understand? Yi Futian knew she was an extremely sensitive girl the moment he saw her eyes. Although she didn't want to get other people into trouble, she cherished this warm feeling a great deal. Maybe it was because she never experienced it in the past. Looking into Yi Futian's eyes, she nodded solemnly and tried to remember his words. Give me a smile. Yi Futian rubbed her head and laughed. Yi Qingyao gazed at him, blinked a few times, yet couldn't crack a smile. Aren't you silly? Yi Futian said with a grin. Yi Qingyao suddenly curled up her lips and beamed innocently. Yi Futian looked at her smile and sighed silently. He had a vague feeling that Yi Qingyao might be involved in an incredibly big secret, and he might not be able to protect her. Chapter 1736 Divine Fetus of the Great Path. Chapter 1736 Divine Fetus of the Great Path. More cultivators came to Juyo City. Right now, a line of people was standing above the yellow spring in Juyo City and looking down at the roaring water. wearing monastic robes and radiating the light of Buddha from their bodies. They were all Buddhist cultivators who looked quite stately and solemn. They came from the mountain realm of the 9 supreme imperial realms. In addition, people from the mountain realm were usually strong cultivators. Master Guizong, one of the Renhuangs who built a perfect divine wheel in the god's relic, was also among them. Uncle Master, it seems like you're not the only one who came. Several temples sent their masters here. Guizong said to a master standing next to him. The master was gaunt without a shred of strength in his limbs. His bony hands were holding a string of Buddhist prayer beads in front of his chest. He was intoning some Buddhist scripture that was too obscure for ordinary people to understand. Even Guizong didn't fully comprehend the meaning of the scripture. As the hell resurrected, it's only normal for them to come here, the feeble monk said. Many Buddhist monks from the mountain realm seemed to have noticed the master and walked toward him. They put their palms together in front of the chests and bowed to greet him. Good to see you, Master Pudu. Master Pudu of Tianxian Temple was an eminent and erudite monk. He had comprehensive knowledge about the unfathomable Buddhist doctrine and was a prominent figure respected by countless people in the mountain realm. Comparing with top forces in other supreme realms, people in the mountain realm rarely get involved in outside matters. They had been immersed themselves in Buddhist cultivation for over 300 years. However, some people of the older generation knew that the monks in the mountain realm once came out of their temples in concert 300 years ago. That was indeed a chaotic era. Nice to see you, Master Pudu. People greeted him one after the other. It was evident that Master Pudu enjoyed a particularly high status in the mountain realm. He still held the prayer beads and acknowledged everyone to show respect. Master Pudu, did you come down the mountain because you were worried? A distinguished monk asked. The mountain realm surely assembled a strong lineup this time. What does Master Pudu think will happen after the gate of the hell opened? Someone else asked. They all wanted to know Master Pudu's thoughts on the situation. Master Pudu slightly lowered his head. With a faint smile in his beady eyes, he put his palms together and said, "Whatever that is supposed to happen will happen. We only need to wait quietly." His response was meaningless, yet people still nodded approvingly, as if they were completely convinced by him. Many people on the banks of the yellow spring far away cast their eyes toward Master Pudu and whispered to each other. People in the mountain realm hardly ever go outside. However, they sent a group of high-powered cultivators here this time. Even Master Pudu of Tianxian Temple came to Jiryo City, someone said. Tianxian Temple was the greatest temple in the mountain realm, while Master Pudu was the supreme monk in Tianxian Temple. Plenty of people were familiar with his monastic name, even in Jiryo City. The man standing next to Master Pudu is Guizong. He has a perfect divine wheel, and achieved his breakthrough in God's relic along with Shen Hao, Jian Qingzhu, Nan Luoshan, Di Wu and others. Guizong is a low-key person, typical for a Buddhist monk. I suspect that he might even be stronger than Shen Hao. It seemed like people tended to use Shen Hao for comparison whenever they talked about top cultivators these days. Shen Hao lost his luster due to the debacle of the Shun clan. Therefore, many people liked to use him as a yardstick when they gauged a cultivator's ability. Shen Hao's reputation declined markedly. It was the price he had to pay for losing the battle. Shen Hao used to be considered as one of the top 3 cultivators of his generation. Nevertheless, the public now suspected that anyone who stood in front of the heavenly palace in God's relic back at that time might be a better cultivator than him. The cultivators from the mountain realm were not the only ones who came. Several other people also arrived at where Futian was standing. Futian was surprised to see that the leader of these people was Shen Luoxue. "Granny," Futian called. "Why do you come here yourself?" Based on seniority, he was supposed to refer to her as Grandma Master, which was too much of a mouthful. In addition, since Fei Xue called her Grandma, he wouldn't sound like a complete stranger by calling her Granny. Shen Luoxue didn't come across as an old woman despite how Futian and Fei Xue addressed her. But she did have silver hair, same as Futian. "Grandma was worried about you," Fei Xue, standing alongside, told Futian with a smile. Futian, of course, understood that Shen Luoxua truly cared about him, even though she might appear standoffish and indifferent. She also treated Ningyu very well. Did someone attack you here in Jiuyou City? Shen Luoxua asked. It's not a big deal. I already took care of it. Those people wouldn't dare to show their faces again, Yi Futian said. Granny, you didn't need to come specifically for this. I didn't come just for this, Shen Luoxua said. All the forces in the 9 realms have sent reinforcement after hearing what happened here in the Hidden Land realm. This thing with the hell is not as simple as you expected. Yi Futian looked at Shen Luoxua and asked, What kind of group is the hell? Shen Luoxua, a cultivator of the older generation, and was born many years ago. She lived through the turbulent times, and surely knew more about the hell. The hell? Shen Luoxua gazed into the distance, and cast her mind back to the past. The 3,000 realms of the Great Path at that time were crowded with powerful cultivators, who were much more aggressive and forceful than the current ones. Countless people perished in turmoil, and the chaos might never end if not for Donghuang the Great Emperor and Emperor Yi Qing. Donghuang the Great Emperor and Emperor Yi Qing were indeed the most remarkable leaders. This is something that goes beyond the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, Shen Luoxua muttered. Eyes narrowed, Yi Futian concentrated to listen. Anyway, the hell had a horrific influence in the Hidden Land realm back in the days. Even though they disappeared many years ago, I'm afraid that the remaining evildoers of the hell have always been hiding in the Hidden Land realm, and they are exposed now only because of the mayhem they caused. This thing is not that simple anymore. Shen Luoxua spoke to Yi Futian. Cultivators from other forces should arrive soon. Granny, I met a girl in Jiuyou City. Yi Futian turned around and shouted, Qingyao, come here. Yi Qingyao walked to them and stared at Shen Luoxua curiously, said, Nice to meet you, Granny. Shen Luoxua looked at Yi Qingyao, and the divine eye in her brow chakra stared directly at her. Scared, Yi Qingyao felt a little sick, and backed to hide behind Yi Futian. Granny, wait a second. Yi Futian crouched down. He gazed at Yi Qingyao and said in a soft voice, Qingyao, Granny wants to take a closer look at you in order to better help you. But I will ask Granny to stop if you don't want it. Yi Qingyao looked into Yi Futian's eyes. She certainly could feel the kindness Yi Futian had been showing her since the beginning. She nodded and said, I will you whatever you say. Yi Futian smiled and pinched her cheek gently, said, Good girl. He then turned to signal Shen Luoxua. Yi Qingyao didn't hide this time. She clenched her teeth and endured the uncomfortable process while clutching Yi Futian tightly with her hand. Yi Futian could feel the sweat in her palm. For a girl who grew up in darkness, she displayed absolute trust by opening herself up. Because of Qingyao's life experience, she naturally kept her guard up when confronting most people. She would be particularly hostile this time, if not for Yi Futian. Shen Luoxua glanced through many things. Before long, the divine light disappeared, and she stared solemnly at Yi Qingyao. She was apparently in shock. You follow me. Shen Luoxua turned her eyes to Yi Futian and said. She looked quite serious. Although Yi Futian already knew Yi Qingyao was not an ordinary girl, he didn't expect Granny to be so astonished. He looked at Qingyao and realized the girl was also looking at him with her chin up. She grasped his hand firmly. It's all right. Yi Futian smiled. Qingyao nodded and let his hand go. Shen Luoxua and Yi Futian stepped aside. Yi Futian asked, Granny, what's wrong? Take a look for yourself. A beam of light shot from Shen Luoxua's brow chakra to Yi Futian's. Yi Futian didn't resist. Soon, he saw an extremely appalling scene. A group of cultivators with menacing energy surrounded a small house in Jiuyou City. The floor was littered with several dead bodies. A girl stood alone next to the corpses with blood on her clothes. Even her face was smeared with blood. The cultivators walked straight to her and wanted to take her away. However, the girl's eyes suddenly became completely black. The sky grew dim, and the terrifying darkness engulfed the area and swallowed the cultivators who were coming for her. Their eyes, faces, and every inch of their bodies withered and died as the life being sucked out of them. The girl's body hovered in the air. She only descended and lay on the ground in silence after the darkness devoured every person there. The scene left Yi Futian aghast. He finally understood why Qingyao said she brought bad luck to people, and why a team of cultivators in the Runhuang Plain would be so afraid to go to capture a little girl. Despite knowing that Qingyao was a natural-born divine fetus of the Great Path, Yi Futian was still surprised that Qingyao could unleash such frightening energy involuntarily and effortlessly. She might have an astounding background, Shen Luoxue said to Yi Futian. She could have something to do with the core of the hell. Yi Futian looked at her with a somber expression. He already had similar speculations prior to this. Does she know this herself? Yi Futian asked. Shen Luoxue shook her head and said, she knows nothing about her situation. Yi Futian sighed silently. He was saddened by Qingyao's fate. She was only a little girl, and this was too heavy a burden for a young girl to shoulder. The thing that happened last time will keep happening if you plan on keeping her around. Perhaps the entire Heavenly Mandate Academy will never experience peace from now on. Shen Luoxue's face was grave. Several master cultivators in Jiuyou City already fought over Qingyao. Based on what Shen Luoxue saw with her divine eye, Qingyao would definitely cause a violent storm in the future. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1737 Yellow Spring Flows Backwards. Chapter 1737 Yellow Spring Flows Backwards. Yi Futian didn't know how to respond to Shen Luoxue's words. He noticed before that Qingyao was an unusual girl. What Granny just saw further confirmed his speculation. No one knew where Yi Qingyao came from. She didn't even remember. Even so, her background was, beyond a doubt, extraordinary. Yi Futian had met countless exceptional cultivators in his years. But Yi Qingyao was the only person whose power was so tremendous that it blew Yi Futian's mind. To be exact, it shouldn't be called power. It was more like her innate ability. Because of that, a girl who had never cultivated for a day in her life somehow killed cultivators in the Runhuang Plain. What did it mean? Yi Futian himself didn't even know what it meant. It contradicted common sense in the world of cultivators, and was at odds with his own understanding of cultivation. He always had a high opinion of himself, and once asserted that he was born to be a king. Even though it might only be a boastful claim, he was confident that his divine body of the Great Path and life spirit could complete the Great Path. Despite all that, he still couldn't do what Qingyao did. Master cultivators such as Hierophant Jiuyou were willing to put their lives in jeopardy to snatch Yi Qingyao, who was under the protection of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. They chose to do it in spite of the extremely high risk. So, who on earth was behind them? The extent of influence and infiltration the Hell achieved in the Hidden Land realm might be far beyond everyone's imagination. Shen Luoxue continued to say. The forces in the 9 realms sent reinforcement to the Hidden Land realm because they started to realize that. It was also the reason Shen Luoxue came to Jiuyou City in person. Yes. Yi Futian nodded. He looked at Shen Luoxue and said with a smile, let's take one step at a time. But I don't have the heart to abandon the girl like this. I knew you would choose this way. Let's go back, said Shen Luoxue. She then turned around and walked back. It was why Shen Luoxue was fond of Yi Futian. As a newcomer to the Runhuang Plain, Yi Futian dared to risk his life and led an army to attack the Shen clan for the sake of his master. He was a young man with tremendous courage and determination. She would be disappointed if he was willing to give the young girl up easily. Yi Qingyao was standing in place and waiting for Yi Futian and Shen Luoxue to come back. She raised her head slightly when she saw Yi Futian walking toward her. She stared at him intently and silently the whole time. Her eyes made Yi Futian's heart ache. He was probably the only hope the girl had left. However, she was destined to have an unusual life and might have to face many challenges and dangers in the future. Just as he expected, he might be able to protect her forever. Yi Futian walked to Yi Qingyao. He rubbed her head and cracked a warm smile. The old monk was Master Pudu from the mountain realm. He was a remarkable cultivator who had a deep understanding of the Buddhist doctrine. Moreover, he led the Buddhist cultivators from the mountain realm and found the gate of Yellow Spring in Juyo City. It was also him who activated the gate and made it appear. Therefore, Master Pudu's opinion mattered a great deal. Buddhist cultivators from the mountain realm emitted brilliant light of Buddha from their bodies. Master Pudu held the prayer beads in his hand and said, "This is the entrance to the gate of the hell." Many people narrowed their eyes upon hearing his words. They didn't expect him to be this straightforward. On top of that, Master Pudu seemed to be very confident that it was the right place. "Why are you so sure?" someone asked. "My gut feeling," Master Pudu replied. People instantly felt a little discouraged and disappointed. Could they really rely on his instinct? But some people had complete trust in Master Pudu. The gate of the hell might truly be in the Yellow Spring if he said so. Master Pudu is one of the best cultivators and an expert on Buddhist doctrine. It's probably the case if he thinks the entrance to the gate of the hell is in the Yellow Spring, said Gai Qixing, a prince of the Golden Divine Nation. "Can Master Pudu bring us in and show us what hell looks like?" Someone else in another direction asked. It was Di Wu from the Solar Divine Palace, who was asking the monks from the Tianxian Temple of the Mountain Realm to lead the way. They were at the Yellow Spring after all. Even cultivators from Supreme Forces didn't dare to underestimate the situation. No one knew what was inside of the gate formed by the Yellow Spring. "Can't you walk on your own?" a voice answered Di Wu's request. It sounded very calm without a shred of sarcasm, as if the person was simply asking a plain question. The man who spoke was Guizong from Tianxian Temple. All the Supreme Forces in the 9 realms had sent cultivators to Juyo City. The several geniuses who developed perfect divine wheels in God's relic were also here. After all, they represented the future of the world of cultivators and should seize every opportunity to improve themselves. Moreover, they were strong enough to shoulder responsibilities alone now. They were definitely capable enough to take control of their own territories if they left the Supreme Forces. It was Master Pudu who found this gate. Besides, what's wrong with us following someone as extraordinary as Master Pudu? Di Wu replied calmly. He didn't think there was anything wrong with his request. "I guess you have a point," Guizong said expressionlessly. He didn't know how to counter such an argument. Another group of people walked toward the gate from far away. Many people turned to gaze at them. The divine beams of flame gleamed in Di Wu's eyes after he recognized the people coming. The silver-haired lady next to Yi Futian was probably that distinguished woman from the Shun clan. What a pity! Shun Luoxue was such a prominent figure back in the days. She might even be the successor to Shinji if she stayed in the Shun clan, instead of getting mixed up with the Sky River Great Elder. Yet now she was in the Heavenly Mandate Academy. What a steal for the academy! Yi Futian walked closer and stared at the gate of Yellow Spring. He was astounded by how the water flowed backward and transformed into a gate hundreds of meters high. It seemed like something mysterious was going on inside of the Yellow Spring. They heard that people from Tianxian Temple found the gate. "It's been a long time since I last saw you, Master Guizong." Yi Futian turned his head and said to Guizong with a smile, "Nice to see you too, Benefactor Yi." Guizong put his palms together in front of the chest and said, "I had a deep admiration for you in the God's relic. It took me by surprise that even people in the mountain realm have long heard about your great name." "It's undeserved fame," Yi Futian smiled and replied. "You're such a humble person," Guizong laughed. "Brother Yi enjoys a stellar reputation in the 9 realms nowadays. You surely don't need to be too modest," someone in another direction said. Yi Futian saw the cultivators from the Tianxian Academy and recognized that the man who spoke was Jian Qingzhu. "Nice to meet the seniors from Tianxian Academy." Yi Futian greeted the men standing beside Jian Qingzhu. He felt grateful to them, even though it was merely a deal back then. People from Tianxian Academy nodded slightly. The celebrities who shone in God's relic were having a reunion this day in Juyo City. Nan Luotian, Qingni, and Yinshang were here as well. On the other hand, Shenhao was much more restrained now, contrary to his high profile in God's relic. Yi Futian rose to fame by standing on Shenhao's shoulders. "How is the situation, Granny?" Yi Futian said to Shun Luoxue at his side. "A lot of people," Shun Luoxue replied. Even some cultivators in the high-level Runhuang Plain showed up. Her divine consciousness spread out and covered a large area. They were not the only ones who were attracted by the gate of Yellow Spring. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1738 Ancient Battlefield. Chapter 1738 Ancient Battlefield. The presence of Shun Luoxue attracted the attention of many cultivators, especially those from the Shun clan. The person who headed the Shun clan was a middle-aged man. Just standing there, he exuded an air of authority, as if he had been accustomed to being in charge for a long time. He was wearing a purple robe, and there was a hint of majesty between his brows. Upon close scrutiny, he and Shun Luoxue bore some resemblance to one another. Shun clan Shun Luochuan, Shun Luoxue's elder brother, and Shun Hao's grandfather. Shun Hao was the same generation as Fei Xue. Shun Luochuan's gaze focused on Shun Luoxue, and he asked, "How have you been at the Heavenly Mandate Academy?" Shun Luoxue glanced at him casually, her expression indifferent. She did not respond. No one was on her side for what happened back in the days. Everyone had followed the will of the Shun clan, acting based on the interests of the Shun clan, including her own brother, who had even participated in the battle. Therefore, for Shun Luoxue, this familial relationship had long been terminated as far as she was concerned. At the moment when her own daughter died, that cruel and cold-blooded family was already erased from her heart. Therefore, she paid absolutely no attention to Shun Luochuan. At her level of cultivation, she was extremely grounded in every way. Once she had determined her view on certain things, nothing could change her mind at all. People from other principalities watched the two with great interest. These two characters from the Shun clan were once peerless, commanding figures of their times, and they both figured prominently in the Shun clan. If none of those things happened in the past, and the Shun clan had not interfered with Shun Luoxue and the Sky River Great Elder, perhaps the Shun clan would be extremely prosperous now. However, there was no if. The aggression of the Shun clan determined what happened in the past, as well as the situation today. Master Pudu. Shun Luoxue looked at the eminent monk from Tianxian Temple, who returned her look by clasping his hands together in greeting. Benefactor Luoxue, the eminent monks of the mountain realm should be one of the forces that know hell the best. What does the master make of hell's intention of bringing all of us here? Shun Luoxue asked. Master Pudu smiled and understood what Shun Luoxue meant. There must be a purpose for hell to draw the forces of the 9 realms to the hidden land realm. Now finding the entrance to the gate of hell may just be what the other side wanted, and could be used by the remnants of hell. Before I came down the mountain, the abbot told me that everything has its own time, and what must happen cannot be stopped, Master Pudu said with a smile. Shun Luoxue looked slightly alarmed. The abbot of Tianxian Temple was a great Buddha, who had obtained the true way. His power was boundless, and he could see many things that others could not. However, if the abbot of Tianxian Temple also held this opinion, then it looked like that some things were indeed impossible to stop. Perhaps, the peaceful 9 realms may experience a period of turmoil. I understand what you meant. But if you don't intervene, and I don't intervene, it doesn't mean that we can persuade the others in the world of cultivation to do the same. Master Pudu continued. Instead, it is much better to face it head-on. There were many top forces in the 9 supreme imperial realms. Even if they did not participate, could they stop the others? The master is right. Shun Luoxue didn't say much more. There was only one force that could prevent all this from happening, and that was the empty imperial palace. The empty imperial palace was under the command of the great emperor. Although he did not make a habit of inquiring about the external affairs of day-to-day, he still had the responsibility of monitoring everything. Now, even the empty imperial palace hadn't made its appearance. Did this mean that empty imperial palace had quietly acquiesced everything that was happening? Let's go in. Master Pudu said nothing more, but simply clasped his hands together as he stepped forward. Suddenly, the radiant light of Buddha flowed all over his body. At this moment, his frail body turned into an ancient Buddha, walking steadily toward the gate of Yellow Spring. Wherever the light of Buddha touched the gate of Yellow Spring, the great destructive power of the spring was unable to corrode it. With its golden body Dharma, and a sublime and solemn appearance, Master Pudu stepped inside and gradually disappeared from sight. Although previously, there were those who had incited Master Pudu to enter first, thus caused the displeasure of the people from Tianxian Temple. But in the end, Master Pudu was the first one to enter the Yellow Spring anyhow. Sonorous sounds of Buddha rang out. They turned into an all-encompassing light of Buddha. All the masters from Tianxian Temple moved forward, watching their own steps. Even Guizong had no one to escort him, but must walk alone by himself, shuttled inside the gate of Yellow Spring. Soon, all the cultivators from Tianxian Temple disappeared from sight. Let's go. Since someone took the lead, everyone else suddenly became bolder. Everything behind the gate of Yellow Spring was unknown, but with the eminent monk of Mountain Realm in the lead, they felt it was safe enough to follow behind. Therefore, there were many people rushed forward this time. Yi Futian was in no hurry when he saw the action taken by the others. All the cultivators from the Tianshan Academy waited quietly. At this moment, there was a scream, and the blazing flame of a cultivator from the solar realm dimmed, and then turned into a black fire, consuming him little by little. Soon, his body was swallowed by the Yellow Spring. Careful! Everyone became much more alert when they saw this. They had been too careless. Some had begun to release the might of the way to protect those around them. Yaya, take care of Qingyao, Yi Futian said to Yaya, who was beside him, and she nodded. Yaya of Renhuang cultivation had also cast a perfect divine wheel of swordsmanship. She would have no trouble passing through the gate of Yellow Spring, but Qingyao needed to be protected at all times. Let's go. Yi Futian spoke, and suddenly the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy started to move. Yi Futian did not release the might of the way to shield himself, but walked into the Yellow Spring directly. In an instant, the terrifying Yellow Spring swallowed up his body. Its destructive power corroded it, even trying to enter his body to corrupt and destroy his vitality. However, the cultivators of Renhuang Realm possessed the bodies of the Great Path, and every part of their bodies had been baptized by the Great Path. Yi Futian's body seemed to be filled with natural defense, so that the Yellow Spring was unable to corrode his physical body. He moved steadily forward and walked inside. Yaya wrapped both Qingyao and her with a halo of swordsmanship, and entered inside the Yellow Spring. What a boss! Numerous people on both sides of the Yellow Spring, and in the void, had witnessed this incredible scene. The way that Yi Futian entered the Yellow Spring was truly unprecedented. No one else in the same realm of him had dared to do so before. Only those with great power would dare to be so audacious. This was the person who had slain the middle Run Huang of the Divine Will Sixth Order, someone said. The battle at Juyo sect had already spread all throughout Juyo City. No matter how Yi Futian was able to achieve that, it was a good indication that he must have already reached the peak level of middle Renhuang. Indeed, he had the right to be arrogant. However, his actual realm served to deceive those who took him at face value. Anyone who treated him as a divine wheel of the second order would face a nasty surprise. Changxi smiled when she saw what Yi Futian did. She stepped forward and walked straight ahead. Goddess! Those around her were a little worried when they saw her action. Changxi ignored them. She, who possessed the perfect divine wheel, was also the goddess of Yue Divine Palace. If Yi Futian could do it, why couldn't she? Under everyone's gaze, Changxi also walked inside. After that, many people followed Yi Futian's example and walked inside the gate of Yellow Spring. Soon forces from all parts of the realms had entered inside, but there were still many cultivators remaining from Juyo City, and they were now moving forward one after another. Every one of them was Renhuang level existence. Anyone less than Renhuang level was not qualified to enter, because they would require protection. Therefore, it made no sense for them to come along. Qingyao had to be inside, because Yi Futian couldn't leave her alone outside, because of the danger. When they saw that all these people had stepped inside, the onlookers in the distance were surprised. When did Juyo City have so many cultivators? Moreover, many of them exuded a very strong aura. This time it would certainly be extremely lively inside, and they wanted to go in and watch too. However, most people didn't qualify, so they could only wait on the outside. After Yi Futian and the others entered the gate of Yellow Spring, they came upon another space, an independent space. What is this place? Everyone was more cautious now. After all, it was an unknown area. Within Yellow Spring, there was another hidden space. This space was vast and boundless. The light inside was dim, as if flowing with endless gloom of the underworld, with wisps of death permeating the air. Underneath their feet, there was a black flame of destruction, and there were already some Run Huang who had been burned accidentally. Are we in the real hell? Next to Yi Futian, Do Zhao mumbled. This space was way too creepy. There are mountains ahead. Yi Futian looked into the distance. Many also looked up there. There were indeed mountain ranges, but black fire of death was spewing forth from them. Many people felt extremely ill at ease, because this place was not suitable for most people to cultivate. But there were a few cultivators from the Hidden Land realm who felt extremely at home. To them, this place was simply the most ideal place for cultivation. At this moment, a group of people had been moving toward the distance, and they were already somewhat further ahead than the people who came in later. Everyone looked over there, and saw the eminent monks of the mountain realm marched forward. Master Pudu, who was in the lead, looked solemn and grave. Go! The others hurried to catch up to them. Did the master detect what place this is? A cultivator asked the master of Tianxian Temple. Battlefield. Master Pudu responded without hesitation, which startled the person who asked the question. All the surrounding cultivators wore a grim look on their faces and asked, "What battlefield?" The battlefield where the hell was destroyed, Master Pudu continued. Finally, his footsteps stopped momentarily as his gaze aimed in one direction. Following his sight, everyone looked at one place, and saw that there was a corpse. It had long lost its life, and no one knew how long ago it had fallen. At this moment, the air became a little heavy. The space within Yellow Spring turned out to have been a battlefield once. Many older folks from the previous generations remembered the battle of the years past, but they did not participate in the battle of the Hell's destruction. Rumor had it that some principalities within the mountain realm had gotten involved in that battle, so the mountain realm probably had the most understanding about Hell. The gate of Hell could very well appear here. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.